Nothing about that moment felt like it was fixed. Nothing about that moment felt like freedom. Nothing about that moment felt like I was on solid ground or it made any kind of sense. The only thing I had was my faith in God, that I had done everything I could do physically, I had done everything I could do spiritually, and whatever else was coming, I had to surrender to Him and let it be. Hey y'all, it's your favorite healing coach, Coach Kim, the author, here with a quick-ish word for your mind, body, and spirit. I'm, of course, back in the car. I feel like I spend my life in the car these days. But I was watching, I think, Minister Kevin Ewing, and I can't remember what the message was. I watch like all of his stuff all the time. But he was talking about the children of Israel, and it sparked a memory of someone else I had recently heard speaking about the children of Israel and how they went into the wilderness wealthy. When they left, when they were leaving Egypt, when God was preparing to take them out of Egypt, He had them, quote unquote, borrow gold and I think jewels from their Egyptian neighbors. And they didn't know, what it was about, but God being God, He knew what He was doing. So they go into the wilderness, they've left bondage, they're wealthy, and they're complaining. And I've come to the point in this journey where I read the accounts of what happened in the Bible, and I've stopped saying I would never, I could never, God is too good for me to do or say or think or be X, Y, Z. And I've stopped doing that because I understand that I'm human. You know what I'm saying? We're people. People are going to people, and you just don't know when a certain situation is going to cause you to say or do or think a certain way. So I'm sitting here and I paused the whole video because now I'm wondering if that has been my story, if that has been my thought process, because I had said for a while that after losing my house, I was in a wilderness season. And in 2021, I claimed that was my 41st year. I claimed that in my turning 41, whether I'd really been in the wilderness for the whole 40 years of my life prior to that, turning 41 was going to be my 41st year. I was coming out of the wilderness. I was going into the promised land of things that God had shown me and spoken to me. And I believe on some level I did. I've learned a lot. I've gained a lot. I've grown a lot. I'm still not where I want to be. I'm still not physically where He's shown me I would be, but I'm not anywhere near where I was. So I'm sitting here and I do my best not to complain. I try to praise more than I complain. And if I am going to complain, I'm not complaining out loud. I'm not complaining to my friends. I'm not venting about what's going on with me. I literally go to God and I'm like, this sucks. This is trash. This is not what I thought it was going to be. This is not what you showed me. Like, when am I going to get there? When am I going to have done what I need to do to be where it is that you promised me so I can get out of this? Because this ain't it. Enough is enough. So I'm sitting here and I'm wondering if I am being like the children of Israel. Because even though foreclosure is a hard process, it's a hard thing to admit, it's a hard place of feeling like a failure no matter what you do to fix the situation, no matter what you try to get up out of it. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And I feel like in my case, for a lot of reasons, it wasn't meant to work. God did not want me there anymore. And I remember leaving the house. The day we left the house, I'm walking through the house. The house is practically empty. And for as awful a situation it was, for all of the shame and the embarrassment that I felt was going to be my portion, at least for a while, in that moment, I felt like this house don't owe me nothing. We got married in the living room of our house. And the same day, we had both of our sons dedicated. We brought 2 babies home to that house. We built a family in that house. We had, friendships that started and ended in that house. There was nothing. Like, I really felt like this house owes me nothing. And for the 3 years prior to that I was stressed and I was worried and I was fasting and praying and crying and begging God to fix it because I didn't want it to get to the point where it was, the weight of all of that was lifted off of me on that day, in that moment, walking through this empty house, not knowing what was next, not knowing, exactly where we were going and what was going to become of this situation. I felt free. I really felt strangely free. Now, the next several months were trash. And I shouldn't say trash. They just felt bad. They were hard. They were uncomfortable. They were difficult. There was a lot of growing pains that I didn't realize at the time were growing pains, but there was a lot to have to go through to get to the other side of that situation and come out where we were supposed to be. And I did a lot of complaining. I did a lot of fasting and praying, but I also remember doing a lot of complaining. Then, the same way I feel like now I'm in a much better place. We've not had to live with my parents. We were there for like 8 months, and then we've been in our own place since then, but it's still not what God promised me. It's not my promised land. It's not what he said was my portion. It's not what he's shown me is my portion. And yet I feel like I'm wealthy. I feel like the freedom of that foreclosure on so many levels made me wealthy. It provided me with things emotionally and physically. It gave me the freedom to start healing, to search myself and realize that I needed to start healing, figure out what I needed to start healing from, and then actually do the work to get there. And then start on the path that I had been begging God to put me on. Not knowing what the path was, not knowing where it was going, still don't really know where it's going, but understanding that where I wasn't where I should have been, if for no other reason than I felt in my spirit like I'm meant for more. I was created for more. And somehow in this space, I'm not living up to the more that I know God put in me. And losing that house was the start to the freedom of finding what that was. The start to embarking on, no matter how painful, what I feel to be a purposed and purposeful journey. So I have to ask myself, am I the children of Israel? Am I still complaining? I'm wealthy. I'm wealthy financially, even if I have not yet had it all come to fruition. I'm wealthy in my mind. I'm wealthy in my body. I'm wealthy in my peace. I'm wealthy in my relationships, even though there are fewer of them now than there were before. The level of wealth that I understand God has blessed me with all because I had the audacity to say, I want to know what my purpose is. I had the audacity to say, God, I know there's more for me. I know you have more for me. And then being willing, in some cases unwilling, but I'd already put it out there. So now God is like, nah, you already said it now. This is how it's going to go. This is how it has to go to get what I have for you. Nobody wants to go through something like a foreclosure. And on the other side of it, I can see and understand, even in the discomfort of where I am right now, because it's not where I want to be. There was freedom in the foreclosure. And 5, almost 6 years ago, I could not have said that. I remember standing in the Walmart that same weekend crying. Like I don't even know what I was buying, but I remember leaning over the cart crying, like just silent tears flowing down my face, praying in my heart, God, you said you were going to fix this. And hearing Holy Spirit said, I did fix it. Nothing about that moment felt like it was fixed. Nothing about that moment felt like freedom. Nothing about that moment felt like I was on solid ground or it made any kind of sense. The only thing I had was my faith in God, that I had done everything I could do physically, I had done everything I could do spiritually, and whatever else was coming, I had to surrender to Him and let it be. And I think I'm saying all of this to say, have you looked at the situation that you're in through the eyes of fear and pain and disappointment and discouragement and frustration, and not been able to see that you're actually in a place of freedom? You are actually in a wealthy place, a place where God has put in you everything that you need. Thank you, Holy Spirit. He has put everything in you that you need to move forward. Even if forward means sitting still long enough to hear Him guide you on which way to go, the same way He did Abraham or Abram at the time. He didn't know where he was going. God said, leave your father's house and go to a land that I will show you. We as people, and I'm going to just speak for myself, have a hard time, I won't say trusting God, but we have a hard time not knowing what's next, not knowing what's coming next. Understanding that we are not in control of this. There's nothing for us to do but wait on God, trust God, move the way He tells us to move, be obedient no matter how crazy the directions seem, no matter how unorthodox, no matter how much it might not make sense to us and we want to scream and holler, because God, why? And what is this? Do it anyway. Because He knows what He's doing. If anybody knows what they're doing with you and your life, it's God. Trust Him in everything that you've put in His hands. And the things that you haven't put in His hands yet, why? Why haven't you put it in His hands yet? If you could have done it yourself, you would have done it by now. If it was going to work out the way that you wanted it to, it would have happened by now. There are some things that cannot happen, will not move, will not do anything even remotely close to what you want them to do to be successful until you put it in God's hands and let it be. Find your freedom in your wilderness. Find your freedom in the discomfort of where you are. Find your freedom in His arms, because He didn't lead you here to leave you, and He didn't lead you here for you. And I shouldn't say He didn't lead you here for you to suffer, because one of the fruits of the Spirit is long suffering, but it's not meant to be torturous. It's not meant to be a torment. It's meant to build you. It's meant to grow you. It's meant to strengthen you. Our job is to trust the process. Let God be God. And I challenge you to assess your situation, reassess, reevaluate your situation, and see where you have become wealthy in your wilderness. And until next time, y'all stay blessed.